The broad beans I sowed just 2 or 3 weeks ago have turned into really lovely little plants. They're still very young and not ready to make their next stages just yet. They'll be heading out into the unheated greenhouse in about 7 or 10 days time, but they'll spend around another week acclimatising to being outside full time and getting some weather around their delicate little foliage. However, in the meantime, there is a job that I'd like to crack on with in preparation for bedding these out in around 2 or 3 weeks time. So broad beans have the ability to stand up all on their own, and a lot of gardeners won't bother offering them any support at all. However, through experience over the last 30 years of growing vegetables, I've found that they're much better if you give them a little bit of informal support. Mine this year are going to go in this raised bed. There's a mirror image of this exact bed on the very end of this raised planter, so there's a pair of bookends, one at each end. This year I'm going to be growing peas in one end and I'm going to be growing my broad beans in the other, and both are going to get set up with structures that are completely identical either end. Not only do these look nice, but they're also really easy and very cheap to put together. Now, I like to keep things really simple, and more importantly I like them to look nice, and there's nothing cheaper and simpler to use than a hazel pea stick. All I'm simply going to do now is, with some bean poles which are also made of hazel and these locally sourced and locally cut hazel sticks which are known as pea sticks, I'm going to create a really very basic structure which I'm going to tour you through. It doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be complicated, and it ends up looking really quite pleasant. Pause. Come on then. Go on then. So, by simply using a hazel bean pole, I'm going to insert it into the ground at something in a region of about a 25-degree angle. I want to create a support that's around 4 to 5 feet high. This doesn't have to go all the way up, because this is actually going to support a central bar, like a wigwam, which I'm going to tie the pea sticks to. So using another one, I'm simply going to insert it, again creating that wigwam at about a 25-degree angle. These pieces here can actually be trimmed off, and we're going to put a top bar across the centre. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've actually left quite a large amount of space down both sides of this raised bed. Broad beans are actually going to be the crop I want to actually physically grow and harvest, but they're going to need a companion plant to keep the pesky black fly away from them. So I'm leaving a nice skirt of around 6 inches, which is about 15 centimetres down the side of both sides of the border. This allows me to plant my companion crop for this particular plant bed, which is actually going to be a French marigold. Now that I've got a pair of matching V's, one at the end of each of this particular bed, I can go ahead and install the top bar. It's really very simply another hazel pole placed on top of the V's and brought down into a really tight position. I'm then going to use some hessian twine to simply tie it into place. Now that my basic structure is complete, I can go ahead and just place a line of pea sticks along the outside edge, following a nice straight line between the outer wigwams that I've created. These are going to be placed around every 4 to 6 inches, and they're going to act as the growing stations for each plant that I put into place. My very simple structure is now complete and is ready for the broad beans in the next 2 or 3 weeks time. I'm going to use exactly the same procedure at the other end of this bed for growing my peas, and I build exactly the same sort of structures for growing runner beans and sweet peas, just on a little bit of larger scale.